Wonderful. Okay, great. Good morning. My name is Angela Parada. I'm the Senior Tax Credit Programs Manager. And thank you to each of you for joining me this morning for the 4% Low Income Housing Tax Credit and Private Activity Bond NOFA informational webinar. A few friendly reminders to mute yourself when not speaking. If you have questions, please use the raise hand function or put questions in chat. I am solo today, so if I'm a little slow getting to those questions, please pop off mute and give me a heads up. Feel free to interrupt me as we move through the presentation. And of course, a recording of the presentation as well as a PDF of the PowerPoint slides will be available on the 4% landing page in the next couple of days, hopefully by early next week at the very latest. So today we're going to go over contacts and where you should submit your questions, important dates for the 23-10 4% LIHTC NOFA, the programmatic requirements, an overview of the NOFA process, including the pre-application, the Pro-Quorum Work Centers and full application, the NOFA content, including funding overview, links to documents, and an evaluation overview, as well as final reminders and an opportunity for questions. So if I zip through stuff, it's only because I'm looking to get to offer some time at the end for questions. So as a reminder, all NOFA-related questions have to come into the MF NOFA inbox. I've received quite a few questions to my work account, which is fine. You'll probably see a delay in responding to those. I'm required to forward them over to the MF NOFA inbox and then respond from there. If you would please submit your questions. I am diligently working to try and get responses out, and I appreciate that there's a time lag. If it's urgent, please just write again, and I'll do my best to respond as promptly as possible. Per the NOFA, if you would please include the 23 or the 2023-10 PAB 4% LIHTC in the subject line to give a trigger that those are mine to respond to. We do anticipate releasing FAQs should there be questions relevant to all parties participating in the NOFA. And if you have general programmatic questions not specific to the offering, you can reach out to me in regards to the tax credits, to Martin Jarvis related to the Oregon affordable housing tax credits. And if there's more production specific questions, you can always reach out to Ty Dunstan Strain. So the important dates. The pre-application, which is again the survey, functions as a smart sheet form, will be due by October 9th. All applicants wishing to be considered under this NOFA are required to submit a response to that survey, even those who have successfully navigated and been awarded a different OHCS competitive resource. It's essentially letting us know that your closing is anticipated for the window allowable in this NOFA, which is through Q2 or April of 2024 through March of 2025. The expected release of pre-app stats, which is a summary of those folks who have notified us of their pre-application intent, is anticipated by October 18th. The last day to submit any NOFA-related questions will be October 20th, with the full application, the complete intake application due on October 27th by 4 p.m. We are anticipating doing the review, sorting, and ranking November through December with notifications of recommendation of award in December. I think we all know how wily November and December can be, not only for the tax credit program, but in general. So there is a chance that it might merge over into January of 24, especially since we also have our 9% offering open also. Okay, so brass tacks on 4%. They do require a 60-year extended use period unless they're combined with another OHCS program requiring less. Again, that's usually more specific to the Article 11 Q bond resources. You'll be made aware of that with the success of your recommendation for award. The applicable rent limits, rent and income limits for this cycle will be 2023, available at the link provided. The code requires an election of a set aside, even if 100% of the units will be restricted. Again, that's 40 at 60, 20 at 50, or average income. Our current policy does not allow for the automatic election of average income on 4%, again, because of the caveat that the average income legislation did not include bond compliance with that. So if you're considering average income for your 4% PAB deal, we ask that you notify your PA as soon as possible so that we can start to work through the specifics to make sure that that's a successful choice for the project and to get you formal approval. The development period applicable, again, with the anticipated recommendation of award in December of this year, would require financial close sometime between April 2024 and January 2025. And of course, that should say March, so forgive me because it is through Q1 of 2025. I will fix that before it goes online. One sec while I make a note. All of the underwriting requirements are integrated into the Excel NOFA application. If you have additional questions, those can come into the MF NOFA inbox. They could also, for folks who are interested in reviewing the QAP, page 59 provides an outline and summary of the underwriting requirements. The applicable program charges and fees. So the total 4% application fee is $5,000 plus $1,500 for each additional scattered site, less any fees you may have paid with another OHCS resource. So that means if you, for instance, were a successful LIFT awardee and you paid your $2,500, you would have another $2,500 due to hit the $5,000 required for LITEC. It would be your production analyst who clarifies fees with you. But just to let folks know, we are anticipating 1,000 due with your intake application, with the remainder due at financial close. So if you do not have any other OHCS resources with which you have applied and submitted an application fee, and are coming in for only 4% and PAB, we ask that you submit a check for $1,000 as a pre-intake application fee. Are there questions about that? I think this has been maybe a little convoluted, but I'm hoping that this makes sense, that in general, the total is $5,000 and you may have paid it already if you already participated in a different NOFA. If you haven't, then the check you should provide with your application this time is $1,000. Shelley, yes?
I'm in that situation. So we received our preservation money in the last preservation bond NOFA. So, and as in our deals are scattered sites. So we would take 5,000, subtract 2,500, but then add 1,500 for each additional site because we didn't have the scattered site issue. Okay.
Yes.
And then we don't have to worry about the 1,000. That's for other people. So.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
That's kind of the base fee to participate. Thank you. Great question.
Thank you.
Right. Yes.
I've got one. So again, we have previous funding, so that we've already paid the 2,500. So we would only have 2,500 due because we only have one site, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And So sorry, can you say this one more time? Is it 5,000 due with the application on October 27th, or is it 1,000?
So it's 1,000 if you have not paid any other application fees.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Last call for questions before we move on. Okay. So applicable is also the LIHTC recipient charge of $2,500, a reservation fee, which will reflect 12% of the annual LIHTC allocation, a PAB issuance charge in the amount of 1.5% of the aggregate bond amount, capped at $150,000, and a drawdown fee of 0.5% on the aggregate bond amount. And also provided for successful operating estimates. The LIHTC monitoring charge in the first 15 is $40 per unit. The bond monitoring charge for the first 15 years is $10 a unit in addition to, and the LIHTC monitoring after year 15 is reduced to $30 per unit. Also provided is a link to our current charges table. Great. So moving on, 4% are eligible for the federal basis boost for qualified census tract in difficult to develop areas. The link provides you, will head you to the HUD website with the updated maps. The HERA basis boost is ineligible, or the state basis boost is ineligible for 4% projects. Provided instead is a link to the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act, currently under consideration and garnering support at the federal level. We'd ask that folks interested in having 4% deals be eligible for state basis boost continue to advocate and support for that legislation. So developer fee calculation is integrated into the pro forma on the developer fee tab, but for those interested, the actual equation is provided here. The developer fee limits have not changed, but the chart according to project type and project size is provided for convenience here. You can also visit the QAP on pages 58 and 57 and 58 for more information. So heading on to the NOFA process, the pre-application survey is available. Let's see here. I see a question. Give me just a sec. I have way too many things open. Okay. Brian asks, LIHTC and lift monitoring charges do not stack correct. It's the higher of the two, i.e. lift LIHTC deal would have 40 per unit per year monitoring fee, not a 40 plus 25. That is my understanding. I can include that in a post-webinar FAQ to confirm. I don't have the LIFT program manager on today in order to have her confirm, but I'm like 93% sure that you're right, Brian. Thanks for the question. Okay. So again, returning the pre-application survey will be available at the Smartsheet link. All applicants seeking to be considered need to turn in a response. It looks about the same as the last one. We have included a few additional questions, including unit count and the city the project will be located in. And again, even those projects that have been awarded a recent OHCS state resource must participate in that pre-application survey. You can submit a pre-application survey and then decide without penalty to not complete the intake application. That's fine. We do ask, there were a number of participants in the last cycle who did not notify us of their intent to not submit the intake application. If you decide not to, please send a note to the MF NOFA inbox so that we don't have to send you a note confirming your participation or not in the cycle. The deadline to submit that pre-application survey again is October 9th. And let's see, Procorum Work Center. So we are a little strapped staff-wise. So for folks who are participating in one of the other NOFAs or participated in the last NOFA, we are aiming to hit that 5-day mark to get folks access to work centers for those that don't already have them. If it's been beyond 5 days, would ask for a flag to our MF NOFA inbox and apologize in advance if it takes us a little longer to get you access. We are prioritizing these since it's such a tight turnaround to get items submitted. NOAS. The pre-application includes a section to upload the applicable pro forma. What is this referring to? Pre-application includes a section to upload the applicable pro forma. I'm not sure. Perhaps you could come off mute, Noah, and or whoever asked.
Yeah. There's a
so the
section
pre-application.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify if your question was stemming from the pre-application survey. Is it prompting you to upload something?
Yeah, the survey at the end has a section to upload a pro forma on the site review checklist. And I just wasn't sure why we needed to upload a pro forma if that's coming later with the Excel application, you know?
Yeah, so let's just follow the link and see if I can find. All right, so are you here looking at this form? Or are you looking at something else?
Is that the...
Oh, it looks like Rachel thinks maybe you're referring to the 9% NOFA. The 9% on our does require
you have the same heading, but it doesn't say 9%, it says 4%. I'll take this offline so I don't take everyone's time.
Okay, I appreciate. Yeah, feel free to send a screenshot to the MF NOFA and I'll follow up with you afterwards. This link, the Smartsheet link provided, both in the NOFA and it will be in the slides uploaded later, should take you to this. This is the pre-application survey.
Yeah, I'm probably just on the wrong link.
Okay, no problem. Hopefully we get it cleared up easily enough. Okay. Make sure. Let's see here. Intake applications that don't already have a work center will be preloaded with the forms required in the NOFA. And if your project is recommended for award, that work center will continue to be used through the development life cycle of the project. Okay, friendly reminders about filling out the pro forma application. It has a lot of instances where it's pre-populating, so it is helpful to move through the tabs in order from left to right. The instructions tab has not been fully updated with the new process, so it may or may not be helpful to visit that, but the rule still applies since there is so much getting pre-populated that if you input data on the left-handed side of the tabs before moving through to the right-hand side, it will work to your advantage in terms of making sure that the information is pre-populating correctly. Pay close attention to the color of the tabs and cells. Again, some of them pre-populate, others have drop-down choices, and some are free entry. We ask that you please do not use any hyphens when you're uploading any information. Those hyphens just cause an error in the system when we try to upload that information into our database. And any fields that are not applicable to your project, we ask that you leave blank as NAs or not applicable. Again, cause an error in the system. We ask that you please not attempt to change or modify any of the cells or formulas. There is a risk of an automatic application failure in doing so. And all applicants, by supplying those application materials and providing authorization, do so agreeing to electronic signatures. I see a question. The Excel sheet posted to the NOFA landing page doesn't include a drop-down option for 10. Yes, you should select non-competitive funds. Again, we're in the process of updating the entire offering, so a lot of little things have not been updated. Thanks for the call out, and I'll definitely include it in the FAQ. All right. Oh, let's see here. So this slide, obviously added late because it has a bullet point that shouldn't be there, is a friendly reminder to applicants who were awarded under previous NOFA cycles that we are asking you to please, in section 2.2, it asks for updated financials. Given the economic environment, we're seeing projects change quite a bit from quarter to quarter. And so if you would please update your sources and uses assumptions for consideration under this NOFA, we'd be grateful. We also ask folks to take a look at section 3 of the NOFA to make sure that all of the required materials have been submitted already to the department. We will use the most current submissions in evaluating the applications. I see a hand. I'm not sure who it is, but feel free to come off mute.
Oh, might be me. It's Shelley. So when
Hi.
it says financials, do you want us just to take like the application we submitted for preservation and go in and update sources and uses in the operating budget tabs? That's all we have to really update, and then just redate it or something. And okay.
Yes. Yes, exactly that. We just want to make sure that we are evaluating the most current figures. And since we know that from month to month, sometimes even week to week, things are changing, we'd ask folks who have already been recommended for award to just provide those updates in their sources and uses and operating assumptions.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And then at 2.2, note 2, there's a reference to NOFA section 4.3, which just reiterates those requirements to submit updated financials and lets folks know that they're screened in all of the same ways as all of the other applications, meaning that we take into consideration which set aside you're in, what award order you're in, and the applicability of post-award order prioritization for recommendation. Okay. So general NOFA details. Applicants must request 4% and or, meaning have to ask for 4%, but you could have a different issuer for your bonds, but that are included in your application. If there are any projects anticipating issuing their own or using an alternative issuer, we ask that you just let us know when you, I'm not even sure I created a space for that. Probably you'll be getting a follow-up from me if it's noted somewhere in your application that you intend to have either a sub-allocation or a different issuer than OHCS. If you have an OHCS resource other than 4%, we're the required bond issuer. This NOFA offers $250 million approximately, and potentially a part of that would be subject to private activity bond committee approval. Projects should not request more than 55% of the total project costs. And there's a reminder that when we make the recommendation of award, we will include an additional 10% escalation for potential cost runovers. 4% should be consistent with Section 42 H4B regarding the credit generation on eligible basis. And OHTC asks are now allowed for up to $8 million on permanent loan debt. Says, so I see a question from Jesse. For applicants who have been awarded an OHCS resource in 2022 or later, do you want the updated pro forma with the pre-app survey or by the full application? By the full application. The pre-app just notify us of your intended asks, as well as some really basic project information. The actual updates can be submitted by the time the full intake application is due. All right, so those set asides, oops, forgive me. As is required in the QAP, the $250 million will be split between Metro, which is Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas counties, with a PAB estimated available at $162,500,000, and then the balance of state or any counties not listed with an estimated PAB available at $87,500,000. Projects will be placed into their applicable set-asides and scattered sites in differing counties will be considered in the set-aside with the greatest number of units, although evaluation will consider information from all units. And more on that or any additional specific details in the NOFA can be found on page 6. This is just a link to all of the applicable documents. So in terms of the actual evaluation process, there's a series of 3 reviews as 4% intake applications move through the process. And again, all of this assumes that you've already submitted a satisfactory pre-application survey. First is the administrative review, which is just a confirmation that all of the submission materials have been provided. Second is a review of those materials in regards to your readiness to proceed, meaning that they satisfactorily pass all of the required elements in the NOFA as it relates to readiness. And third is the application of the award order and ranking placement. So in terms of administrative review, we'll ask for all Excel application pro forma elements and tabs to be completed. There's a breakout of those items on page 9 of the NOFA. That you have completed the MWESB engagement strategy tab, the applicant agreement tab, the authorization acceptance tab, the DEI agreement tab, have provided a board resolution or applicable documentation, have completed the ownership integrity tab, and the applicable charges transmittal tab. Other items also required are evidence of site control, zoning confirmation form, site review checklist, building permit timeline disclosure, investor letter of intent, lender's letter of intent, a utility allowance verification, a preliminary title report, and if the project is subject to a master plan, we ask that you please provide documentation of that. Are there any questions on those specific elements? For applicants who have been awarded another OHCS resource, should we resubmit materials that have not been updated since the last NOFA, i.e. zoning confirmation form? So this is kind of at the discretion of the applicant. We would ask that anything that's changed in the application, which is why we're asking for updated financials, be resubmitted. The zoning confirmation form, unless there was, that one's kind of a hard example to kind of wrap my head around because I don't think that would have changed. But if it has, and it would impede your project's ability to move through to close that's estimated in your application, then yes, you should resubmit. If there's a follow-up to that, I'm happy to take it. We also have, let's see, Sarah asks, if we have an option agreement to demonstrate site control, what is the date that that option needs to go to? The note in the pro forma hasn't been updated. It still says December 2022. That's fair. And of course, probably a good thing. It's usually a year out. But we'd need it to demonstrate at least through to your close, whatever your anticipated close is. I may have to triple check if we have a standing policy around that. My off the cuff answer is at least a year out from the submission of your application. But I think we could probably satisfy that requirement with through and until at least your financial close. I'll have to follow up. Any requirements for LOIs to be within 6 months? Yeah, we have not put a timeline on those LOIs. We know that they're difficult to get without having some sense if you're actually going to get recommended for award. We'd ask that they'd be no older than a year. Master plan, is that the comp plan for the city? If any, if none, then nothing to report. Yeah, master plan would be, how do I say, a document that is dictating the development in some way, usually penned by a jurisdictional body. And if you are not aware of any implications of a master plan, there probably is nothing to report. And then Kevin asks, I think this was answered, but for projects that have an award, we update the application pro forma from the application and not the new one available on the 4% landing page. Yes, please use your original application for the update. Provide those new figures on that old form. Okay. Great, thank you. And again, for any of those that were a little messier, I will follow up with an FAQ that gets posted with the recording and the PowerPoint. I appreciate your guys' patience. Okay.
Hey, Angela, and I just wanted to follow up on my question about the zoning verification form as an example, just wanted to give that as an example of something that has not changed since the previous application, and that would not, since it hasn't changed, that we don't need to go ahead and resubmit that. It would just be extra
exactly
work to look out for a year or two.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yes. Great. Again, and it's really, I mean, it's at the applicant's discretion. We'll use the most recent dated materials in your work center for review. We just are going to expect that there be recent submissions for updates on financials. And if there were some change, you're absolutely right. The zoning form would not be something that's changed, and we would not expect to see anything more recent than what was submitted with the original NOFA. Awesome, thank you. To Robin's question, so if it's in pro quorum already and has not changed, then no need to resubmit. Right, that's correct, except for financials, which we would expect have been updated some. Okay. So the second stage of review is readiness to proceed. Applicants must satisfy all readiness requirements to be considered for award order prioritization and funding recommendation. All items are reviewed on pass-fail. Again, and the development schedule should demonstrate a financial close before March 31st of 2025. Sooner closings will be prioritized. Zoning, the form should be completed and submitted, demonstrating compatibility. Again, if you've already submitted that because you successfully navigated a different NOFA, then you don't need to resubmit that. If you have never applied or were unsuccessful, we would expect to see that again. Documentation of site control, site checklist that demonstrates feasibility of the project on the proposed site, and the development pro forma review with the elements provided here. There is one small update that we are, before I go into that, I see there Shelley has a question. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just pulled up my previous application. So sorry to get so technical here, but should we go back through the project details tab and re-identify this as the non-competitive NOFA? Because it says NOFA,
No.
7 initial NOFA. We don't have to redo that information.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Nope. Yep. Again, it's really just about updated sources and uses assumptions and operating assumptions. Okay. So the development pro forma review is listed in the NOFA. It looks exactly the same as the last offering, requires realistic and available resources on the budget uses tab of the pro forma, confirm with documentation. There should be no gaps in project financing, demonstrate all other funding is committed to the project with documentation. It is prohibited to list OHCS resources not already awarded. That means that you cannot include in the balancing of your sources a future anticipated NOFA or some other resource you intend to access after submitting your application. Contingency should be within allowable limits. Commercial costs should be listed in the correct column. Construction inflation should be at least 3%. Sources listed as fundraising or capital campaigns will be failed. Again, those are not actualized. If they are actualized and you have funds that were raised that way, we ask that you describe them as cash. The developer fee must be within the allowable limits, and we ask that deferred developer fee be paid off by year 15 of the project. Operating pro forma review. Again, we allow that, we ask that projects aim to be within the target OHCS guidelines between 1.15 and 1.30, unless permanent debt underwriting requires a variance. If that variance is needed, we ask that you provide evidence and documentation in terms of what's happening that requires that. And if OHTCs are requested, there is a required minimum of 1.20. If there is no debt, then the project must cash flow positively throughout year 20. And if it's a mixed use project, it must demonstrate that no commercial income is being used to support the low income residential portion of the project. Okay. So applying the award order, projects that pass the administrative review. Ooh, Shelley. Before we move on.
I'm just, so because we're dealing with bonds that are basically, in our case, short term, when you look at the pro forma pages on the application, there's no place to put the bond amount. I put it on the smart sheet so you know there, but you can't put it on because then it increases your total project cost because it's in and out short term. So how are you going to correlate what we're asking for PAB if we can't put it on the sources page.
So is it not currently in the
Nope, it's
in
not
the
on the
bonds
list.
tab?
The bonds tab. Oh, I guess you would have to look there. You would just have to look there.
Yes.
Okay. I
Yep.
see what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there. So it's just not on sources because we're using short term. So we need to update. So we'll have to update the bonds tab also. So any financing
Yes.
tabs will be
Yes.
updated with the new application.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Perfect. Nope. It's a great question. Thank you. Okay, cool. So again, back to applying the award order, assuming that you pass administrative review, pass readiness to proceed benchmarks, you will be placed into the 4% pipeline that is then sorted by award order. Once all of the projects are reviewed and are ranked by their award order, and potentially, depending on if we have an insufficient amount of funds to rank any one project in the award order, we would apply post-award order prioritization rules. Folks will get notified of their recommendation for award and will be assigned a production analyst with whom they will complete a full application with any remaining due diligence items to turn in and move forward with approvals of funding. So QAP, private activity bond award order. There are 4 award orders. In order to be in award order 1 or housing authority priorities, you must meet one of both list A and B. So that means any combination, but one of each. So either site control and 100% ownership interest in the sole general partner, or the managing entity, 51% or greater ownership plus site is located on housing authority controlled land for list A. List B is a loan representing the lesser of 10% of the total resources or 5 million, or project-based rental assistance for the greater of 25 units or 25% of the total units. The second award order is significant local funds, defined as projects that have the lesser of 10% of its total project resources or $5 million from a local jurisdictional gap subsidy source. Award Order 3, OHCS or federal funding, defined as a project that meets at least one of the following requirements, has a confirmed reservation of an OHCS capital subsidy resource, or has a federal capital funding source. Award Order 4 is no other applicable funding, defined as a project without any other funding source identified in the second or third award order categories. Post-award order prioritization rules. So if after competitive ranking of projects, 2 or more projects are similarly ranked, meaning they fall within the same award order, and there is insufficient funds to provide for both projects, we would use the following prioritization to select a project. Priority 1 would be a project that is a qualifying culturally specific organization or developer. And take a look at page 11 of the QAP for the definition and requirements. Priority 2, the project that has the highest percentage of units restricted to residents at 30%, tax credit restrictions for AMI, and rent limited to 30% AMI, or a project that has the highest percentage of units with state or federal project-based rent assistance. If for some reason neither of those apply, we would then head to priority 3, projects that have been awarded or have a reservation of a PSH resource, including rental assistance or supportive operations funding for the purposes of supporting people experiencing chronic homelessness. This is inclusive of resources not specific to OHCS, so any reservation of a PSH resource. Okay, so last tips. Don't assume that your reader is familiar for any of those narrative responses. Please spell out any acronyms. It's possible that reviewers may only be looking at one section of your application. So, and I think this is a takeaway from a 9% application, so it's a little less applicable. But if you're finding yourself repeating yourself, it's more than likely for a reason. And we ask that you take your time with each section of the application. Double check that any referenced attached materials are in fact uploaded to your work center as supplemental or supporting evidence, and make sure that any assumptions that you're making in one section of your application carry through to the rest of the sections of your application. Final reminders, again, those dates, pre-application is due October 9th, with the intake application due October 27th at 4. All questions can get sent to the MF NOFA inbox by October 20th. FAQs will be posted frequently, depending on how often they come in. Use the instructions tab and or the red flags on the NOFA application for as a guide. And remember, the process is competitive and submissions are final. So take your time and make sure that everything matches up. So I think we hit our 1 hour. Questions. I see one from Sarah. Will there be a list of projects that were awarded in the last 4% round? Yes, there will be. I have no shame saying it's sitting in a draft form and will be posted soon. It just hasn't gotten done yet, but it will get posted. Yes. Let's see. No problem. Any last questions with our remaining 8 minutes? I appreciate everyone's time and attention and participation.
Hey, Angela.
No
Do you
yeah.
do you have any indication or direction about when OHCS will issue another 4% round if projects are they're ready or not?
Yeah, so I think it will depend some on how tax credits eventually integrate into that consolidated offering. I think realistically, we are aiming to assign PAB through 24 and into Q1 of 25. So that would likely put us at a similar time next year for 2025 closings. I'm leaning on however that new consolidated process rolls out and how tax credits get integrated into that. I don't think I have a better answer than that, except for to say that we would probably have to open sometime in the second half of next year for 25 closings.
Angela, since you mentioned the new consolidated process, do you know when that might be coming out?
I think I heard Natasha say yesterday we're aiming for late Q1, Q2 of next year on our partner call. Any last questions? Uh-oh. If not, I think we're free to disband. I'm going to stop the recording.